Hello dear YouTube viewers, I hope you're doing well. Okays, let's start our video. I had barely finished dinner when she dropped the news on me, as casually as if she were telling me she was going to the market. I'll be leaving tomorrow. The company needs me on a business trip, she said, her voice smooth, rehearsed, almost too calm. I froze, the fork in my hand suspended midair. A business trip? Without even discussing it with me first? Something inside me tightened, a knot pulling at my chest. For months I had been trying to ignore the small signs, her distant gaze when I spoke, the way her phone seemed glued to her hand, the secretive smiles that slipped across her face when she thought I wasn't looking. I had told myself I was imagining things, that I was just being paranoid, but hearing her announce this sudden trip made every buried doubt rise to the surface. Tomorrow? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. You didn't think it was important to tell me earlier? Or even ask me if I was okay with it? She sighed and rolled her eyes in that way she did whenever she wanted to make me feel unreasonable. It's work, not a vacation. Why would I need your permission? They called me last minute, and I can't just say no. Her words were sharp, dismissive, as if my feelings were irrelevant. I leaned back in my chair, struggling to control the anger that flared up inside me. It's not about permission. It's about respect, about being honest. You've been acting different lately, and now you're telling me you're flying out tomorrow without even discussing it. Her lips pressed into a thin line, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. You're overreacting again, she snapped. This is exactly why I didn't want to tell you earlier. You always turn everything into a fight. It's work. Just work. Don't twist it into something it isn't. Her words stung. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to trust her. But my instinct screamed otherwise. Something about the way she brushed me off, the way her tone hardened as if daring me to question her, told me I wasn't wrong. Still, I bit my tongue. The next morning came too quickly. She was up before dawn, suitcase by the door, makeup flawless, perfume lingering heavy in the air. She moved briskly, avoiding my eyes, as though she couldn't stand the weight of my stare. I offered to drive her to the airport, but she shook her head sharply. No need. I'll grab a cab. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I stood by the window as she stepped into the waiting car, her silhouette framed by the rising sun. She didn't look back, not even once. The engine started, and within seconds she was gone, leaving behind nothing but silence. The kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room. It presses against your chest, suffocating, whispering that something precious is slipping away. I remained there for a long time, staring at the empty street, my reflection faint in the glass. I wanted to believe she was telling the truth, that this was just a business trip. But deep down, in the place where instinct gnaws and truth hides, I knew better. That evening, after she left, the house felt emptier than ever. The silence was not new, though. It had been creeping in for months, slowly but surely. I poured myself a drink and sat in the dim glow of the living room lamp, letting memories unravel one by one. The signs had been there all along. The way her phone never left her hand anymore, as if it were an extension of her body. At first, I laughed about it, teased her for being addicted. But soon I realized she guarded the device like it held her very soul. She would angle the screen away from me, tuck it under her thigh if I walked by, and when it buzzed in the middle of the night, she would quietly slip out of bed to check it. And those smiles, the kind she never gave me anymore. Not the bright, full ones she used to, but the small, secretive smiles that curled at the corners of her lips while she stared at glowing texts. I would catch them in flashes, moments she thought I wasn't watching, and each one felt like a blade pressed gently but firmly against my heart. Then there were the late nights at work. Always meetings, deadlines, emergencies. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But how many emergencies could one person have? And why was it that she always came home just a little too polished, as if she'd freshened up somewhere else before walking through the door? And intimacy, that was the cruelest sign of all. The way she turned away from me at night, her excuses piling up. Too tired, too stressed, too busy. I told myself every couple goes through phases, that maybe she was overwhelmed, that maybe I was imagining it. But no matter how I tried to reason with myself, I couldn't shake the cold distance between us. I rubbed my temples, trying to calm the storm of thoughts, but the questions only grew louder. Was I paranoid, inventing betrayal where none existed? Or was I willfully blind, refusing to face the truth that had been staring me in the face? Later, I called Mark, my oldest friend. He listened patiently as I spilled everything. The sudden trip, the signs, my gut twisting into knots. When I finished, he exhaled heavily and said, "Look, man, don't drive yourself crazy. If she's guilty, the truth will come out on its own. It always does. Don't obsess. You'll tear yourself apart." His words were simple, meant to calm me, but they didn't. If anything, they gnawed at me even more, because the idea of waiting, of sitting back while lies bloomed around me, felt unbearable. Yet what could I do? I had no proof, just suspicions, memories, and a phone call that hadn't come yet. I tried to bury myself in work the next day, shuffling papers, answering emails, pretending I cared. But every time my mind drifted, I saw her in some hotel room, laughing, whispering, giving her smiles to someone else. My chest tightened with every image until I could hardly breathe. No matter how much I tried to distract myself, the thought followed me like a shadow. If she wasn't mine anymore, then who was she? That night stretched longer than any I could remember. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling as the shadows shifted with the passing hours. Sleep refused to come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, suitcase in hand, walking away. Her back turned to me like I was nothing more than an afterthought. I kept reaching for my phone on the nightstand, checking it compulsively, though I didn't know what I expected. A message from her? A call. Something to reassure me that she really was where she claimed to be. The screen remained dark, mocking me with its silence. Her last words before leaving replayed endlessly in my head. "It's just work. Stop making it into something it's not." I repeated them over and over, as if saying them enough times might force me to believe them. But they felt hollow, each repetition twisting deeper into doubt instead of easing it. The bed beside me was cold and empty, the sheets untouched. I reached out instinctively, my hand brushing the space where she should have been, and the chill that met my skin sent a hollow ache through me. That space used to be warm with her laughter, her breath, her presence. Now it was nothing but absence, and that absence weighed more than her body ever did. Anxiety gnawed at me, but it wasn't alone. Anger simmered beneath it, a quiet burn in my chest. How dare she dismiss me so easily, make me feel like my concerns were foolish? And yet, despite all of it, a small piece of me clung to hope. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe tomorrow she would call, cheerful and loving, and I would feel foolish for doubting her. Maybe. Outside, the sky cracked open with thunder, rain slashing against the windows in relentless sheets. The storm raged, its howling wind and pounding rain echoing the chaos inside me. Each thunderclap jolted me like the sound of my own thoughts crashing against themselves. I lay there, trapped between fury and longing, between certainty and denial, my mind as restless as the storm. Morning was hours away, yet it felt as if the night might never end. The storm outside had softened into a steady drizzle, but inside me the storm only grew louder. I must have dozed for a few minutes because when my phone buzzed, the sound ripped me out of the half-sleep like a fire alarm. My heart hammered in my chest as I fumbled in the dark, the glow of the screen blinding my tired eyes. Unknown number. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. Midnight calls rarely brought good news. For a second, I considered ignoring it, letting it fade into the silence. But something deeper, a pull, an instinct, forced me to answer. "Hello." My voice was rough, low, almost cautious. At first, nothing. Then a man's voice, urgent and strained, tumbled through the line. "Where are you? You promised to be with me tonight. I can't believe you're ignoring me like this after everything we talked about." I froze. Every muscle in my body turned to stone. The voice wasn't familiar, but the words, they struck like lightning, setting everything inside me ablaze. My breath caught, but I didn't speak. I couldn't. The man went on, frustration sharpening his tone. "You said you'd make the excuse about work. that he'd never suspect. And now what? You're just going to vanish on me. Each word landed like a hammer against my chest. My mind scrambled, replaying them, dissecting them, desperately hoping I'd misheard. But there was no mistaking what he'd said. The excuse about work, that he'd never suspect. He thought I was her. My grip tightened on the phone, knuckles white. My pulse thundered in my ears, so loud I thought he must hear it through the line. I stayed silent, forcing myself to listen, though my entire body screamed to react. On the other end, his voice softened, almost pleading now. Listen, if your husband ever finds out about us, it's over. Everything we've built, everything we've risked, it'll mean nothing. You can't keep pushing me aside like this. I need you here. My mouth went dry. The world tilted, my worst fears not only confirmed but spoken out loud, cruelly, carelessly. He had no idea who he was really talking to. And I let him ramble, each syllable cutting deeper. Finally, I couldn't bear it any longer. The words clawed their way out of me, cold and deliberate. This is her husband. A silence followed that was heavier than any storm, thick and suffocating. For a moment, I heard only his breathing, shallow, shaky. Then, without a single word, the line went dead. I sat there in the darkness, phone pressed to my ear even after the call had ended, as though clinging to proof that it had really happened. My chest rose and fell in uneven bursts, rage and devastation crashing into each other inside me. I wanted to scream, to smash the phone against the wall, to call her right then and there and demand the truth. But I didn't move. Instead, I sat frozen, my own silence echoing back at me. The call replayed in my mind, every sentence etched in fire. He thought I was her. He admitted everything. And now there was no doubt, no excuse left for me to hide behind. The storm outside had finally stopped, but inside me, the thunder raged on. I didn't know how long I sat there, the phone still clutched in my hand, the screen gone dark, my reflection faint in the glass. My body felt rigid, as though the call had turned me into stone. The words echoed again and again, drilling into my skull. If your husband ever finds out you said he'd never suspect. Rage came first, hot and consuming, a fire that made my chest ache. Then humiliation, heavy and suffocating. How many times had I defended her to myself, brushed away the doubts, told myself I was imagining things. Every late return, every secret smile, every cold shoulder in bed, they weren't harmless quirks. They were warnings. And I had ignored them, because I loved her, because I didn't want to believe. The heartbreak followed, quieter but deeper, a hollow ache that spread through me, leaving me feeling like I was crumbling from the inside out. My wife, my partner, the woman I trusted with my life, was sharing herself with someone else. And now it wasn't suspicion anymore. It was truth, spoken carelessly by the man who had stolen what was mine. I stumbled into the kitchen, opened the cabinet, and grabbed the bottle of whiskey I usually saved for celebrations. My hands shook as I poured it, the amber liquid sloshing against the glass. I drank it fast, the burn searing my throat, but it did nothing to dull the pain. So I poured another, and another. Each swallow was supposed to make it easier, supposed to numb me, but instead the fire inside only grew hotter. At some point, I slumped into a chair, glass in hand, and stared at the wall. My mind raced through options. I could call her right now, scream the truth into her ear, demand explanations. I could drive to wherever she was and catch her in the act. The thought of confrontation made my blood surge, my fists clench. But another thought crept in, cold and strategic. What if I waited? What if I let her return, let her spin her lies, and then tore them apart one by one with what I knew? That idea stuck. I wanted to see how far she would go, how shamelessly she could look me in the eye and pretend nothing had happened. I wanted her lies exposed in the light of day. So I chose silence. For now. The next morning, my phone lit up with her name. For a moment, I just stared at it, my chest tightening, my pulse spiking. Part of me wanted to let it ring, to let her stew in silence the way I had the night before. But I answered, forcing my voice into something calm, controlled. "Hey," she chirped, far too cheerful, her tone wrapped in false warmth. "Just wanted to check in. How are you doing?" Her voice grated against me. every note a reminder of the lies she was weaving. I forced a smile into my words. "I'm fine. Just working, you know. How's the trip?" "Oh, it's good," she replied quickly. "Meetings, long hours. You know how it is." Her words were smooth, but the background didn't match. I could hear faint laughter, music even, as though she were in a restaurant or bar, not a conference room or hotel lobby. My grip on the phone tightened, but I kept my tone steady. "Sounds busy. Who's running the meetings?" She hesitated, just a fraction of a second, but I caught it. "Oh, the usual team. Lots of boring stuff. Nothing worth talking about." The evasiveness sliced through me like glass. I pictured her sitting across from him, maybe holding her phone under the table, pretending everything was normal. Every word she spoke felt like a knife, and yet I nodded along as though I believed her. "That's good," I said softly, hiding the venom under a layer of calm. "I'm glad it's going well." She laughed lightly, almost forced. "See, nothing to worry about. I'll be home before you know it." I wanted to scream at her, to tell her I already knew the truth, but I bit it back. Instead, I listened, storing away every inconsistency, every slip. If she thought she could outsmart me, she was wrong. The more she lied, the more careful I became. When the call ended, I sat in silence, phone still warm in my hand. The rage was still there, but now it had focus. I wasn't just suspicious anymore. I was collecting evidence, piece by piece. And when the time came, she wouldn't be able to hide behind her lies. When she finally returned, suitcase rolling behind her, I was waiting at the door. I forced a warm smile onto my face, pulling her into a gentle embrace, though every nerve in my body wanted to recoil. Her perfume filled my senses, sickly sweet, a reminder that someone else had likely breathed it in before me. "Missed you," I murmured, my voice steady, controlled. She hugged me tightly, too tightly, her arms clinging like she was afraid to let go. It felt unnatural, rehearsed, as though she had decided beforehand that this was how a devoted wife should act. She pulled back, eyes shining just a little too brightly. "It's good to be home," she said, but her gaze slid past mine quickly, never settling. I noticed every detail. The way she busied herself with her bags instead of meeting my eyes. The way she leaned into me, overly affectionate, kissing my cheek again and again as though trying to erase something I couldn't see. To anyone else, it might have seemed sweet. To me, it reeked of guilt. Inside, fury burned hot, but I buried it deep. I played my part, smiling, asking about her trip, nodding as she rattled off vague details. The more she spoke, the clearer it became that she was building a story on the fly, patching it together clumsily. That night, once she was asleep, I began my quiet search. Her suitcase first, clothes folded neatly, but a faint scent of cologne that wasn't mine clung to the fabric. Her phone next, locked as always, but patterns of deleted calls and messages stood out. Then her email, password saved, easy enough to access, though nothing obvious was there that I knew then. The mask she wore would crack soon, and I would be ready. The proof came quietly, almost too easily, as if it had been waiting for me all along. I was sitting at her desk one evening while she showered, pretending to sort through the stack of mail she always left unopened. That was when I found it, folded neatly inside a hotel envelope, tucked between old bills. A receipt, not from the city she had sworn she traveled to, but from another, several hours away. One night, 2 guests. My hands trembled as I read the details, the truth staring at me in black ink. Still, I wasn't done. I dug deeper, scrolling through her phone after she carelessly left it charging in the kitchen. Most of the history was clean, too clean, but buried in her contacts I found one name. Sarah. I wouldn't have thought twice, but something about it caught my eye. The thread of messages beneath it stole my breath. They weren't from a woman. They were from him. Romantic, urgent words disguised under a false name. "Last night was perfect. I hate lying, but I'd rather lie than lose you." My stomach twisted as I scrolled, each message confirming what I already knew. The final blow came when I stumbled upon a small receipt crumpled at the bottom of her purse. A jewelry store. A necklace, expensive, elegant. Something she had never shown me. never worn at home. Bought during the days she was supposedly buried in meetings. I sat in the quiet of our living room, the evidence spread before me like a grotesque puzzle finally solved. There was no room for doubt anymore. Every suspicion, every sleepless night, every hollow explanation, it had all led to this. She hadn't just lied. She had betrayed me fully, body and soul. And yet, I didn't explode. No screaming, no smashing of glass, no confrontation in the heat of discovery. Instead, I felt a cold calm settle over me, like ice forming where fire had once burned. My fears had been justified, my trust shattered beyond repair. But I would not let rage dictate what came next. No, I would wait. I would watch. And when the moment came, I would confront her with the truth she thought I'd never uncover. The dinner table was set as if nothing had happened. Soft candlelight, our usual plates, silverware aligned with precision. She sat across from me, smiling lightly, an air of innocence she believed would shield her. I could taste the anger before I even spoke, a bitter tang coating my tongue. "I got a call last night," I began, my voice deceptively calm, slicing through the soft clatter of utensils. "An urgent call, from someone you weren't expecting me to know about." Her smile faltered, just slightly, like a bird sensing a trap. I don't know what you mean," she said, voice too high, too controlled. I set my fork down slowly, letting my words land. "Your lover, the man who thinks he can steal from me in the middle of the night, the one who called, thinking I was you." Her face went pale. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Denial, a reflexive shield she had used so many times before. "You know what? It's not just a call," I continued, my voice steady, though my chest was on fire. "I found the receipts, the messages hidden under a fake name, the jewelry you bought in another city while claiming to be on business. Do you have anything to say for yourself?" Tears welled in her eyes, but for a moment she remained silent. Then came the excuses, the justifications I had heard whispered in shadows before. I was lonely. We hardly spent time together. I needed excitement, something I couldn't find at home. My hands clenched into fists beneath the table, knuckles white. Every word she spoke felt like a fresh betrayal. "Excitement?" I asked, voice rising but controlled, like steel sheathed in fire. "Do you know what loyalty feels like? Do you know the sacrifices I made, the nights I stayed up worrying, the times I forgave your distance because I trusted you? And this is how you repay me." Her tears flowed freely now, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. She tried to speak, to beg, to explain, but nothing could undo the truth laid bare before her. I rose from my chair, letting the silence stretch heavy between us. I felt grief, yes, a deep, stabbing ache. But I also felt clarity, a fierce resolve that steadied my hands and heart alike. "I may have lost my wife," I said, voice ringing with finality, "but I will not lose my dignity." She slumped in her chair, broken, defeated, and for the first time I saw her truly, not the charming, deceitful mask she wore, but the woman who had chosen lies over love. The air between us was thick with everything unsaid, everything destroyed, and yet somehow, in that moment, I felt a strange freedom. For the first time in months, I could breathe without suspicion clouding every thought. The battle was over, even if the war within my heart would take longer to heal. She left the next morning, her bags packed with an efficiency that made my chest tighten. She claimed she was staying with a friend, but I didn't need to ask to know where she was truly going. The house felt impossibly empty after she walked out the door, a hollow echo of the life we had once shared. I wandered from room to room, taking in the silence that no longer carried her laughter or her voice. Every corner of the house was a reminder of what had been lost, and yet, amidst the grief, I felt something else, a sharp, clear sense of clarity that had been buried under months of suspicion and denial. The betrayal still burned, yes, but it no longer clouded my judgment. Later, I called Mark, my oldest friend, the one who had warned me not to obsess, who had told me the truth would come out if it existed. "You were right," I said, my voice heavy but steady. "The truth always comes out." He didn't need to respond with advice or sympathy. Just hearing his calm, Steady presence on the other end reminded me that life moved forward, that the pain, though raw, would not define me. I spent the following days slowly reclaiming my space, my routines, my own sense of self. I cooked, I cleaned, I worked, but more importantly, I allowed myself to feel everything without judgment. The rage, the sorrow, the humiliation, they were all there, but they no longer controlled me. Each passing hour reminded me that I could survive betrayal and heartbreak, that I could emerge not weaker, but stronger. I thought of her briefly, with a mixture of pity and resolve. The woman who had once been my partner was gone, replaced by someone who had chosen deception over honesty, thrill over loyalty. I didn't hate her. I simply recognized that some people are incapable of choosing the right path, and some truths are unavoidable. As night fell, and I finally sat alone in the quiet of my home, I reflected on that call, the one that had shattered my illusions and forced me to confront reality. That late-night call broke me, but it also freed me. Sometimes the ugliest truth is better than the prettiest lie. I let the words settle over me, a mantra against lingering doubt and future uncertainty. And for the first time in months, I felt the lightness of space, without deception pressing against me. I didn't know what the future would hold, but I knew this. I would move forward with honesty, with courage, and with the unshakable certainty that my dignity was mine alone. For the first time, I could breathe again. Thanks for watching. For more videos, please subscribe. Our channel Awesome Visual Story.